Hi everyone, welcome to sample book assignment 6. We are working on sample 29, our centered zipper. Remember that in sample book 6 there are two, only one is required, the centered zipper. Sample 30, our lapped zipper, is the bonus sample and it is not required, so that's up to you if you want to do it. It does not hurt you if you choose not to do that one. But the centered zipper for sample 29 that we'll be working on is, oh, just a second, that light went off. What's going on? Okay, there we go. So your centered zipper is kind of our more common zipper application. It's what you'll see in like the back of skirts, dresses, some shirts, things like that. It is a very broad zipper application. And in that you'll see a little bit of the zip. So this is the zips that we'll be working with. So let's talk a little bit about anatomy of a zipper real quick, so we're on the same page. So this is our zipper tape, kind of like the fabric, the ribbon of the zip. Most of them are made out of a twill, so it's really sturdy. It has some thickness so that it can hold the pressure, because there is pressure from holding the closure together, as well as like when you're bringing it up and down. So this is our zipper tape. This is what we'll be sewing on. These are the teeth, and this is the pull. Then at the bottom and at the top, we have what we call zip stops. So when you go to a store and you're shopping for zips, the package will say a few different things. So it might say like polyester, brass, nickel, metal, invisible, separating, jacket, right? So there's lots of different types of zippers. The main thing to note is when it's saying a material like polyester, metal, or being specific about metals like brass, nickel, that is referring to the material of the zipper teeth and the pull. So these are a brass or metal zip, and polyester zips look just like this, except for this part is a polyester and it's kind of like a plasticky fill. So those can melt if you kind of get the iron too close to them and leave them for a while. So when it just says that, it's like your base zipper, it will look like this. It is just like that material. And so these zip stops at the bottom are like a permanently closed zip stop. So you cannot separate it like you would. So like if I open this, it stays connected. So I can't separate it like I do for a jacket if it was a full zip jacket, where you're supposed to unzip it, separate it, and shrug it on and off the shoulders. This is once, like when you're shopping for the zippers, you need to be conscious of the type, because the zipper type, like if you need a separating zip and you get a regular one, it's not going to be able to do that, right? Because you cannot cut these, because then the pull just falls off and it becomes like just two pieces of zipper tape. So in order to have like a separating one, you have to buy a separating or jacket zip. And so that's the main thing, is like looking for the things you want. They also come in different lengths. So metal zips typically come in a wider variety of lengths at stores, especially specialty apparel stores, because it's harder to shorten metal zips. So like polyester zips, invisible zips, these types of things that where the material can be cut with our fabric shears. You can, let's say you need a 10-inch zip and the store you go to only has like an 18 or a 24-inch zip. So you can get one of those longer ones, and then when you're sewing, you just do like a reinforcing stitch, so you go back and forth a couple of times across the bottom, and that bar becomes the new zip stop, so you can then cut that extra, 4 to 14 inches away from that store-bought zip. Metal zips, you can't just use a regular fabric scissors, so they can come in different ones. Can also, if you need a very specific size, even if it's going to be like a polyester one, you can go to a lot of your big fashion stores. So I think there's at least 1 or 2 in Chicago, but for sure places in like New York City and LA, they can actually build the zip for you. So you can pick like the color of your zipper tape, what color this is going to be, not like the color, but also like the shape of the pull. Like, do you want it like this? Do you want it nice and skinny? What is it you want? And then they can make it to you, the exact size you need. So if you need a 13.85-inch zip, they can make that for you. And they can also make it if you want it separating, if you want it this or you want it that. So main thing to note when you're shopping for zips, make sure you're buying the zip that you need. You don't just grab any zip. So in a centered zip, like we're going to be working on, you will be seeing part of the teeth and ribbon tape. And so that is when it can kind of be important on things like the zipper tape. But a lot of your invisible zips, just a little heads up, are a more advanced zip, mainly because they require a specialty zipper foot, the invisible zipper foot, and they're much more finicky, and even for people that have installed them, a little stressful. So we don't start with that. Don't let your students do that one for your very first time. But invisible zippers, why they're called that is you don't see anything but the little tab. And usually the invisible zippers are like this little skinny little thing. And so you want it to be as close as possible to the fabric, because then the idea is you don't see that at all. But in your centered, you are going to see it, right? Versus like the lapped, you're creating fabric to go over it in order to do that. So what we're going to do in our centered zip is I have my 2 5x11 rectangles that I've already prepped, and I have marked 4.5 inches from one edge on the long side. It does not matter which one, that is just where we're going. And so we're marking that because 2 or 4.5 inch is going to be our permanent seam at 12 SPI with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, backstitching at the beginning and the end. And then the rest of the space, we're going to do a basting stitch because this is where the zipper is going to go. And that way we know where it's going. So we're going to start with our permanent seam. If you also haven't noticed, I did switch my presser foot from our regular presser foot to a zipper presser foot. The main thing is it has a narrow foot. They're not necessarily required in industrial machines because the presser foot's already a little bit smaller. But with this, if you notice, I can get really nice and close to my zipper teeth without like manhandling it, and there'll still be plenty of space in my zipper tape. So we have these, I do recommend them, but some of your residential machines are almost required. So we're gonna go at 5/8 inch, so that's halfway between our 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch. And we're gonna do our 12 SPI, and we're gonna backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Remember, we just need to backstitch only 2 or 3 stitches. And I'm just gonna go to my 4.5 inch mark. So I marked it with tailor's chalk, but you can snip it, just make sure you don't cut into the seam. You can also use other marking implements. Why I like to use it is because I can have it fully marked and I know like I can go past it, and I don't have to eyeball where that is. So we do want to trim these threads to like nothing, because when you have a zip installation, when you put in the zip, the threads, if there's any tails left, they can get caught into the zipper teeth throughout the garment, like the life of the garment as you wear it, and it can cause jams in it. And then you have to like remove the zip and reinstall it. So I now have my permanent seam in, so I'm gonna crank my stitch length up all the way to my 5 so I can do a basting stitch, and I'm not gonna backstitch. I'm going to pull my threads so I can have a tail at the beginning and at the end. And then even if you wanna have a little gap, that's fine. Main thing is that we're lining this up so that we have our full seam line as we install our zip. And remember, we're not going to backstitch. We are just going to use our biggest stitch length to sew in our seam line. And I want to leave some tails there. I also need to check what's going on with my machine. All of a sudden, my tension has messed up. What has happened? So I'll do that in between videos because what I'm going to be doing now, this part I will say is fine with that because this is going to be removed. We mainly just need this for that seam line. So I'm going to work on that in between videos while I also prep for the next thing. So for that, I am going to bust my seam open so that's laying flat. In technical, what you need to do is you would need to like overcast both edges of your zip, like in an actual garment, so that the edges are finished. For this one, you do not have to do that. If you want to practice it, you can, but you can just skip that step because this part is really about the zip. I am then going to lay my zip down and I'm going to hand baste it in to that busted open seam so I can do my next thing. So I'll see you in the next video after I've adjusted my tension and I get this part ready.